Hello, my good friends. How are you today? May God bless you all. I will not introduce anything. You guys watch the video and feel it, then let's evaluate together. Seattle's rain was relentless, a steady drizzle that turned the city into a blur of gray and neon. Inside the Rainier Valley Community Clinic, the air smelled of antiseptic and damp coats. The waiting room buzzed with the low hum of tired families, coughing kids, and the occasional ring of a phone. But in the clinic's creaky old elevator, time seemed to stop. Ethan Caldwell stood shoulder to shoulder with Lila Harper, the space so tight he could feel the warmth radiating from her. His tailored suit was soaked, clinging to his broad shoulders, and his usually perfect hair was a mess of dark curls sticking to his forehead. He tried to look composed, like the billionaire real estate mogul he was, but the flickering fluorescent light and the groan of the stalled elevator weren't helping. "Great," Lila muttered, jabbing the emergency button for the third time. "This thing's older than my grandma's Buick." She glanced at Ethan, her deep brown eyes sharp with amusement. "Don't worry, Mr. Billionaire. I won't let you suffocate in here." Ethan raised an eyebrow, a half smile tugging at his lips. "Appreciated. But I'm more worried about my shoes. Italian leather doesn't do well in Seattle rain." Lila snorted, leaning against the wall. Her scrubs were slightly wrinkled, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. But there was something about her, something raw and unpolished that made Ethan's pulse quicken. He noticed the faint scent of her perfume, something floral and warm, cutting through the sterile clinic air. Their arms brushed as she shifted, and a jolt ran through him, unexpected and electric. "You're staring," she said, not looking at him. "Am I?" Ethan's voice was smooth, the kind that usually made women blush at charity galas. But Lila just rolled her eyes. "Yep, save it for the society pages, Mr. Caldwell." She pressed the button again, muttering, "Come on, you piece of junk." The elevator lurched, and Ethan instinctively reached out to steady her, his hand grazing her elbow. Her skin was soft, and for a split second, their eyes locked. Lila's breath hitched, her gaze flickering with something, curiosity maybe, or defiance. The air between them thickened, charged with an unspoken pull. Ethan's fingers lingered a moment too long, and he saw her lips part, just barely. Then the doors screeched open, and the spell broke. Lila stepped back, smoothing her scrubs like nothing had happened. "Well, that was fun," she said, her tone dry. "Try not to get stuck again, okay?" Ethan watched her walk away, her stride confident despite the chaos of the clinic. He stood there, rain dripping from his coat, feeling like he'd just been hit by something he couldn't name. For the first time in years, Ethan Caldwell, king of Seattle's skyline, master of glass and steel, felt completely out of his depth. A week earlier, Ethan stood in his Belltown penthouse, staring out at the city he'd helped shape. The Space Needle glowed in the distance, framed by the dark waters of Puget Sound. His apartment was a study in minimalism. Sleek furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows, and a bar stocked with whiskey that cost more than most people's rent. At 42, he had it all. Designer suits, a fleet of cars, and a real estate empire that made him a household name. The Seattle Times called him the architect of the future. But tonight, like most nights, he felt like a fraud. His phone buzzed on the counter, a string of texts from women he barely remembered. "Dinner tonight? Saw you at the gala. Call me." He ignored them, pouring another glass of bourbon. The last charity event had landed him on the front page of the society section, arm in arm with a blonde heiress whose name he couldn't recall. The photo was all smiles, but Ethan's eyes in the picture looked hollow. "Mr. Caldwell?" His assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. "Don't forget your vaccine appointment tomorrow. You need it for the London trip." Ethan sighed. "Where's it at?" "Rainier Valley Community Clinic, only place with an opening." He frowned. Rainier Valley was a neighborhood his company had been eyeing for development. Condos, coffee shops, The kind of revitalization critics called gentrification. He hadn't set foot there in years. "Fine," he said. "Book the car for 9. Across town, in a modest apartment in Rainier Valley, Lila Harper was trying to keep her sanity. The living room was a cozy mess. Noah's piano book scattered on the coffee table, a half-eaten pizza on the counter, and the faint hum of jazz from the neighbor's apartment. Noah, her 9-year-old son, was practicing scales on a second-hand keyboard, his small fingers moving with a precision that always made Lila's heart swell. "Mom, can I play at Mr. Malik's tomorrow?" Noah asked, pausing to adjust his glasses. "He says he's going to teach me a Coltrane riff." Lila smiled, ruffling his hair. "If you finish your math homework, deal." The front door swung open, and Jasmine Torres burst in, still in her nurse's scrubs. "Girl, you will not believe the day I had," she said, flopping onto the couch. "Some guy tried to bribe me with a Starbucks gift card to skip the line. Like, dude, this ain't a coffee shop." Lila laughed, handing her a slice of pizza. "You should have taken it. We could use the caffeine." Jasmine grinned, then leaned in, her voice dropping. "Speaking of needing something, when are you going to get back out there? You're 34, not 84. You need a man, Lila." Lila rolled her eyes. "Oh, please. I've got Noah, this job, and a landlord who keeps raising the rent. I don't have time for dating." "Excuses," Jasmine said, waving a hand. "You need someone to sweep you off your feet, preferably someone who can pay for your Starbucks addiction." "Yeah, right," Lila shot back. "Let me just go snag a billionaire at the corner store." Noah piped up from the keyboard. "What's a billionaire?" "Someone with too much money and not enough sense," Lila said, winking. But as she turned back to the dishes, her smile faded. She didn't talk about it, but the last man she'd trusted, a charming guy with big promises, had left her pregnant and alone 10 years ago. She wasn't about to make that mistake again. The next morning, Ethan stepped into the Rainier Valley Community Clinic and immediately felt out of place. His $3,000 suit stood out like a neon sign in the crowded waiting room, where tired parents hushed crying babies and elderly patients flipped through outdated magazines. A few heads turned, whispers rippling through the room. "Is that Ethan Caldwell, the real estate guy?" He approached the front desk, where a woman was typing furiously on a clunky computer. Her name tag read Lila Harper. She didn't look up, even when he cleared his throat. "Excuse me," Ethan said, flashing the smile that usually opened doors. "I have an appointment." "Sign in," Lila said, still focused on the screen. "ID and insurance card." Ethan blinked. He wasn't used to being ignored. "It's for a vaccine. Ethan Caldwell." Lila finally glanced up, and Ethan felt a jolt, like the ground had shifted. Her eyes were a deep, warm brown, framed by long lashes, and her face, smooth, dark skin, no makeup, had a quiet strength that hit him hard. She was beautiful, not in the polished way of the women he knew, but in a way that felt real, grounded. Her expression didn't change, no flicker of recognition or awe. "ID and insurance," she repeated, holding out her hand. Ethan fumbled for his wallet, handing over the cards. "You run a tight ship here." "Gotta," she said, scanning his ID. "Take a seat. We'll call you." He sat down, unable to stop glancing at her. Lila treated every patient with the same efficiency, but he noticed how her face softened when she spoke to a young mom with a fussy toddler, her smile transforming her into someone warm, almost radiant. Ethan wasn't used to waiting for anything, but he found himself more intrigued than annoyed. An hour later, a nurse called his name. As Ethan followed her to the exam room, he looked back at Lila. She was already back to her computer, not sparing him a glance. The vaccine took 5 minutes, a quick jab and a Band-Aid. As he left, he slowed at the front desk. "Thanks, Miss Harper," he said, deliberately using her name. Lila looked up, her expression neutral. "Have a good day, Mr. Caldwell." He walked out into the rain, her voice echoing in his head. For the first time in years, Ethan felt something stir. A spark, a challenge, a need to be seen. Back in his penthouse that night, Ethan couldn't shake the image of Lila. He paced the living room, the city lights blurring outside. His phone buzzed with invites to exclusive parties, but he ignored them. Lila Harper was different. She hadn't fawned over him, hadn't batted her eyes or asked for anything. She'd looked right through him, and it was driving him crazy. He pulled up the clinic's website on his laptop, scrolling through photos of overworked staff and outdated equipment. An idea formed, one that felt impulsive but right. He called his assistant. "Margaret, draft a check for 50 grand to the Rainier Valley Community Clinic and clear my schedule for next week. I'm joining their advisory board." Margaret's voice was skeptical. "Sir, you don't do advisory boards. And Rainier Valley? That's not exactly your scene." "Maybe it's time I changed my scene," Ethan said, a grin creeping onto his face. At the clinic, Lila was finishing a late shift, the fluorescent lights casting shadows on the linoleum floor. Jasmine leaned against the desk, sipping a soda. "So, guess who was asking about you today?" Lila didn't look up from her paperwork. "If it's that guy who keeps trying to sell me essential oils, tell him I'm allergic." "Nope," Jasmine said, smirking. "Ethan Caldwell, the billionaire. He was very interested in who you were." Lila snorted. "Yeah, right. He's probably just scoping out the neighborhood for his next condo project." "Maybe," Jasmine said. "But I saw the way he looked at you, like you were the only person in the room." Lila shook her head, but a tiny part of her wondered if Jasmine was right. She pushed the thought away. Men like Ethan Caldwell didn't belong in her world. She had Noah to think about, bills to pay, and a life that didn't need complications. Still, as she locked up the clinic and stepped into the Seattle rain, she couldn't help but feel a flicker of curiosity. Who was Ethan Caldwell, really? And why did she have a feeling he'd be back? Hey, if you're loving the spark between Ethan and Lila, don't miss what's coming next. Will Ethan win over the one woman who doesn't care about his money? Hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below. Tell us what you think of their elevator moment or where you're watching from. Things are about to get a lot more complicated, so stay tuned. The Rainier Valley Community Clinic was a hive of activity on a gray Seattle morning, the kind of day where the rain didn't so much fall as it hung in the air, soaking everything. Lila Harper stood behind the front desk, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she juggled patient records and a ringing phone. The waiting room was packed. Coughing kids, elderly folks clutching walkers, and a guy in the corner muttering about his copay. Lila's scrubs were slightly wrinkled, her hair pulled into a tight ponytail, but her calm efficiency kept the chaos at bay. She was mid-sentence with a patient when the clinic's director, Dr. Patel, burst through the door, his face lit up like he'd won the lottery. "Lila, you won't believe this," he said, waving a check. "Ethan Caldwell just donated $50,000. 50 grand. We can finally replace that ancient X-ray machine." Lila froze, her pen hovering over a clipboard. "Ethan Caldwell? The guy from last week?" "The one and only," Dr. Patel said, practically bouncing. "He's coming by this afternoon to discuss it. Says he wants to join our advisory board." Lila's stomach did a weird flip. She hadn't stopped thinking about Ethan since their elevator moment. Those dark eyes, that infuriatingly charming smile, the way his touch had lingered on her arm. But 50 grand? That wasn't charity. That was a statement. And in her experience, men like Ethan Caldwell didn't make statements without expecting something in return. "Sounds like a publicity stunt," she said, keeping her voice neutral. "He's probably just trying to look good for his next big condo deal." Dr. Patel shrugged. "Maybe, but I'm not turning down that kind of money. Be nice when he gets here, okay? We need him." Lila muttered something non-committal and turned back to her work, but her mind was racing. Ethan Caldwell was trouble. She could feel it. And yet, a tiny part of her wondered what he was really after. Across town, in the gleaming glass tower of Caldwell Enterprises in Belltown, Ethan sat at the head of a conference table, half listening to a presentation about profit margins. His office was a monument to success, polished wood, abstract art, and a view of Puget Sound that could make anyone jealous. But his thoughts were elsewhere, stuck on a certain clinic receptionist with a sharp tongue and eyes that saw right through him. His sister, Maya Caldwell, strode in without knocking, her heels clicking on the marble floor. At 45, Maya was a force of nature, sharp cheekbones, sharper wit, and a law degree she wielded like a weapon. She tossed a tablet onto the table, the screen displaying the clinic's donation receipt. "Care to explain this?" she asked, her voice icy. $50,000 to a rundown clinic in Rainier Valley? The board's already whispering about your distractions. Ethan leaned back, unfazed. "It's a tax write-off. Good PR. You should be thrilled." "Thrilled?" Maya's eyes narrowed. "You're pouring money into a neighborhood we're trying to develop. Condos, Ethan, not charity cases. The board wants results, not feel-good stunts." "If building skyscrapers is my legacy," Ethan said, his voice low, "then helping people is my choice. You don't get to dictate that, Maya." She crossed her arms, studying him. "This isn't about PR, is it? It's about that woman, the receptionist. People are talking." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Let them talk." Maya smirked, but there was no warmth in it. "Be careful, little brother. You're playing with fire, and this family doesn't burn quietly." As she left, Ethan's phone buzzed. A text from his younger brother, Derek. "Heard about your charity kick. Slumming it now, huh?" Ethan ignored it. Derek was a walking disaster. Gambling debts, bar fights, and a chip on his shoulder the size of Seattle. The last thing Ethan needed was his brother stirring up trouble. Back at the clinic, Ethan arrived just as the lunch rush hit. The waiting room smelled of wet wool and instant coffee, and Lila was on the phone, nodding patiently as a patient rambled. Ethan approached the desk, his suit pristine this time, a leather portfolio under his arm. He waited, but Lila didn't look up. "Ms. Harper," he said, flashing that smile again. "Busy day?" She glanced at him, unimpressed. "Always. What do you want, Mr. Caldwell?" "Call me Ethan," he said, leaning on the counter. "I'm here to talk about the donation, and maybe grab a coffee with the woman who runs this place like a general." Lila snorted, handing a chart to a nurse. "Flattery doesn't work on me, and I don't drink coffee with billionaires. Too much ego in the cup." Ethan laughed, genuinely amused. "Fair enough, but I'm joining the advisory board, so you're stuck with me. Might as well get used to the ego." She raised an eyebrow, but before she could respond, Jasmine swooped in, her grin wide. "Well, well, if it isn't Seattle's favorite tycoon. You here to save us, or just to flirt with my girl?" "Jasmine," Lila hissed, her cheeks flushing. Ethan's grin widened. "A little of both, maybe. You're Jasmine, right? Lila's told me about you." "I haven't told you squat," Lila said, shooting him a look. Jasmine cackled. "Oh, I like him. Keep him around, Lila. He's got style." As Jasmine sauntered off, Ethan caught Lila's eye. "She's fun." "She's trouble," Lila muttered, but a tiny smile tugged at her lips. "Look, Ethan, thanks for the money, but don't expect me to roll out the red carpet. We don't trust easy around here." "I'm not asking for a carpet," he said, his voice softer. "Just a chance to help." Lila studied him, searching for the catch. But before she could reply, Dr. Patel called Ethan over, and he was whisked away for a tour. As Lila watched him go, She couldn't shake the feeling that Ethan Caldwell was about to turn her world upside down. That evening, Lila's apartment was a haven of warmth against the Seattle chill. Noah was sprawled on the couch, reading a book about jazz legends Ethan had sent him, a gift that had arrived with a note. For Noah's talent. Keep playing. E.C. Lila had almost sent it back, but Noah's excitement had won her over. Malik Jones, their neighbor, sat at the kitchen table, sipping tea. At 70, Malik was a former jazz saxophonist with a gravelly laugh and stories that could fill a book. "So," he said, eyeing Lila, "this Caldwell guy, he's got you rattled, huh?" "He's got nothing," Lila said, chopping vegetables for dinner. "He's just another rich dude throwing money around." Malik chuckled. "Uh-huh, and I'm just another old man playing tunes. I saw the way he looked at you when he dropped off that check, like you were his favorite latte." Lila groaned. "Not you, too. Jasmine's already on my case." "Jasmine's right," Malik said. "You're young, Lila. You got a kid to raise, sure, but you don't got to close your heart forever. This guy might be worth a shot." "He's not my type," Lila said firmly. "My type doesn't live in penthouses." Malik raised his mug. "Keep telling yourself that, kid." Ethan's first advisory board meeting at the clinic was a study in contrasts. He showed up in a tailored blazer, the only one in a tie, while the others wore jeans and hoodies. Lila was there, taking minutes, her expression unreadable. Ethan tried to focus on the discussion, budget shortfalls, staffing issues, but his eyes kept drifting to her. She handed out folders with brisk efficiency, barely glancing at him. After the meeting, Ethan lingered as Lila gathered her papers. "Harper," he said, "any chance you could point me to a decent coffee spot around here? I'm new to the neighborhood." Lila looked up, her eyes narrowing. "There's a diner across the street. They've got coffee. It's not fancy, but it's honest." "Honest is good," Ethan said, his smile disarming. "Join me?" She hesitated, then shook her head. "I've got work to do, and a kid to get home to." "Fair enough," Ethan said, but as he turned to leave, he added, "I'm not giving up that easy, Lila." She watched him go, her heart doing that annoying flip again. "Trouble," she muttered under her breath. The trouble escalated a week later at a charity gala in downtown Seattle. Ethan stood in a sea of tuxedos and sequins, a glass of champagne in hand, but his mind was back in Rainier Valley. His mother, Eleanor Caldwell, glided over, her silver gown catching the light. At 68, she was still a commanding presence, her smile as sharp as a blade. "Darling," she said, air-kissing his cheeks, "you've been hiding, and I hear you're spending time in that dreadful neighborhood. What's this nonsense about a clinic?" "It's not nonsense," Ethan said, his tone cool. "It's a community that needs support. Dad would have understood." Eleanor's smile tightened. "Your father was a sentimental fool who nearly bankrupted us. You have a legacy to protect, Ethan. Don't squander it on some misguided crusade." Before Ethan could respond, he spotted Ryan Kessler across the room. Ryan, a rival developer with a shark's grin, was chatting with a group of investors. Ethan's gut twisted. Ryan had been sniffing around Caldwell Enterprises for years, and lately, he'd been too quiet, a sure sign he was plotting something. As Ethan made his way to the bar, he overheard Ryan's voice. "Caldwell's losing his edge. Word is he's got a thing for some receptionist in Rainier Valley. Can you believe it? The king of Belltown, slumming it." Ethan's hand clenched around his glass. He wanted to confront Ryan, but he knew better. This was a game, and he wasn't about to lose his cool in front of Seattle's elite. Back in Rainier Valley, Lila was locking up the clinic when Jasmine cornered her. "So, Mr. Billionaire's been asking about you again," she said, grinning. "He's got it bad, Lila." "Drop it," Lila said, pulling her coat tighter against the rain. He's just bored. Men like him don't stick around. Maybe, Jasmine said. But I saw him at the advisory meeting. He remembered every staff member's name, even the janitor's. That's not boredom. That's effort. Lila didn't respond, but as she walked home, her mind wandered. Ethan was different. She couldn't deny it. But different didn't mean safe. She'd learned that lesson the hard way with Ryan Kessler, the man who'd promised her the world and left her with nothing but a broken heart and a baby on the way. Still, as she passed the diner where Ethan had asked her for coffee, she couldn't help but glance inside. The lights were warm, the booths filled with locals laughing over greasy fries. For a moment, she imagined sitting there with Ethan, his easy smile cutting through her defenses. She shook her head, pushing the thought away. At his penthouse, Ethan sat at his desk, the city lights sprawling below. He'd spent the evening researching Rainier Valley, digging into his company's past projects. What he found made his stomach churn. 5 years ago, Caldwell Enterprises had bought up a block of affordable housing, displacing dozens of families. He didn't know if Lila had been one of them, but the possibility hit him like a punch. He leaned back, running a hand through his hair. Maya was right about one thing. He was playing with fire. But Lila Harper wasn't just a spark, she was a flame, and Ethan was starting to realize he didn't mind getting burned. The Seattle summer was in full swing, which meant less rain but a sticky heat that clung to everything. In Rainier Valley, the community park buzzed with the annual neighborhood picnic, a chaotic sprawl of folding tables, barbecue smoke, and kids chasing water balloons. Lila Harper stood near a cooler, pouring lemonade for a line of sweaty volunteers. Her tank top was damp with perspiration, her hair loose for once, curling around her shoulders. She laughed as Noah darted past, his glasses fogged up from running. "Slow down, kiddo," she called. "You're gonna crash into Mrs. Rivera's potato salad." Noah grinned, dodging a water balloon lobbed by a giggling girl. Lila shook her head, her heart swelling. Moments like this, simple, messy, real, were why she fought so hard to keep their life steady. Then she saw him, Ethan Caldwell, of all people, weaving through the crowd in a crisp white button-up and khakis that screamed, "I don't belong here." Heads turned, whispers following him like a breeze. "Is that the real estate guy? What's he doing at our picnic?" Lila's stomach did a flip, half annoyed, half curious. What was he up to now? Ethan spotted her and made a beeline, his grin boyish, despite the tailored clothes. "Ms. Harper," he said, stopping in front of her. "Didn't expect to see you serving lemonade. You're full of surprises." She raised an eyebrow, handing him a plastic cup. "And you're full of something else, showing up here looking like you stepped out of a J. Crew catalog. You lost or what?" He laughed, taking a sip. "Dr. Patel invited me. Said it'd be good for community relations. Plus, I heard there'd be pie." Lila snorted. "You're here for pie?" "Right." Before Ethan could reply, a group of kids ran by, one of them hurling a water balloon that caught him square in the chest. The crowd gasped, then burst into laughter as Ethan stood there, shirt clinging to his torso, water dripping from his hair. Lila bit her lip to keep from laughing, but her eyes sparkled with mischief. "Welcome to Rainier Valley," she said, tossing him a towel. "You might want to ditch the khakis next time." Ethan wiped his face, his grin unfazed. "Noted, but I'm tougher than I look." She stepped closer to help him dry off, her fingers brushing his arm as she handed him another towel. The contact was brief, but it sent a spark through her, unexpected and warm. She caught a whiff of his cologne, sandalwood clean, and noticed the way his wet shirt outlined muscles she hadn't expected. Her cheeks heated, and she stepped back quickly, hoping he hadn't noticed. Noah ran up, oblivious to the tension. "Mr. Ethan, you got soaked. Want to play dodgeball with us?" Ethan glanced at Lila as if asking permission. She shrugged. "Go ahead, but don't cry when they wipe the floor with you." 20 minutes later, Ethan was a mess. Shirt untucked, hair wild, laughing as he dodged water balloons with Noah and a pack of kids. Lila watched from the sidelines, her arms crossed, fighting a smile. He looked ridiculous, but there was something disarming about it, like he was shedding the polished billionaire act one splash at a time. "Mom!" Noah called, jogging over. "Mr. Ethan's way cooler than I thought. Can he come to my piano thing next week?" Lila hesitated, her eyes flicking to Ethan, who was wiping mud off his pants. "We'll see, buddy." But as Ethan caught her gaze, his smile soft and genuine, she felt her defenses waver. Maybe, just maybe, he wasn't what she'd thought. A week later, Ethan sat in the back row of a small auditorium in Rainier Valley. His tie loosened, a program crumpled in his hand. The stage was lit with soft spotlights, and Lila Harper, all of 9 years old, walked out in a slightly too big suit, his glasses glinting. Ethan leaned forward, oddly nervous, as Noah sat at the grand piano and began to play. A jazz piece, bold and soulful, that filled the room with life. Beside him, Malik Jones, the old saxophonist who'd been coaching Noah, nodded approvingly. "Kid's got soul," Malik whispered. "Reminds me of me at that age. Except I was chasing girls, not chords." Ethan chuckled, but his eyes were on Lila, sitting in the front row. She was in a simple green dress, her hair down, her face glowing with pride. Every note Noah played seemed to light her up, and Ethan couldn't look away. She was beautiful, not in a flashy way, but in a way that made his chest ache. When Noah finished, the audience erupted in applause. Lila stood, clapping fiercely, her eyes shining with tears. Ethan clapped too, a grin splitting his face. He didn't know much about kids, but he knew Noah was something special. After the recital, Ethan lingered near the exit, watching Lila hug Noah tightly. Malik nudged him. "Go on, man. Say something. She's not gonna bite." Ethan approached, hands in his pockets. "Noah, that was incredible. You've got a gift." "Thanks, Mr. Ethan." Noah beamed, clutching his program. "Mom, can he come to dinner sometime?" Lila's smile faltered, but she nodded. "Maybe, buddy. Let's get you home for now." As Noah ran off to grab his jacket, Ethan stepped closer. "He's lucky to have you," he said quietly. "You're raising a hell of a kid." Lila met his gaze, her expression softening. "Thanks. It's not always easy, but he's worth it." For a moment, they stood there, the air between them charged with something unspoken. Then Noah bounded back, breaking the spell, and Lila ushered him out, leaving Ethan with a feeling he couldn't shake, a need to be part of their world. The clinic's annual fundraiser was a modest affair, held in a community center decked out with string lights and folding tables. The room smelled of fried chicken and cheap wine, and a local band played covers of 90s hits. Lila was in a red dress that hugged her curves, a rare departure from her scrubs, and she felt a little out of her element. She was handing out raffle tickets when Ethan walked in, looking unfairly good in a navy blazer, his sleeves rolled up. "Ms. Harper," he said, his voice warm. "You clean up nice." She smirked, brushing a curl behind her ear. "Don't get used to it. This is my one fancy dress, and it's older than Noah." "Could have fooled me," Ethan said, his eyes lingering a moment too long. Lila felt a flush creep up her neck, but she busied herself with the tickets. The night wore on, and after a speech from Dr. Patel thanking Ethan for his donation, the band struck up a slow song, an old Norah Jones tune, soft and sultry. Ethan appeared at Lila's side, holding out a hand. "Dance with me?" Lila hesitated, glancing around. Jasmine was across the room giving her a thumbs up, and Malik was grinning like he'd planned this. "Fine," she said, taking his hand. "But I'm warning you, I'm no pro." "Neither am I," Ethan said, leading her to the makeshift dance floor. His hand settled on her waist, warm and steady, and Lila's breath caught as they swayed. The room faded, the chatter and clinking glasses blurring into the background. Ethan's eyes never left hers, and she felt the heat of his body, the way his fingers pressed gently against her. Her hand rested on his shoulder, and she could feel the muscle beneath his shirt, solid and real. "You're not half bad," she teased, her voice low. "I bet you've never danced somewhere without a $500 bottle of wine, though." Ethan chuckled, his breath brushing her cheek. "And I bet you've never danced with a guy who's this bad at it." Their laughter mingled, and for a moment it was just them. No billionaire, no single mom, just two people caught in the music. Lila's heart raced, and when Ethan's hand slid a fraction lower, her body responded, leaning into him almost against her will. His gaze dropped to her lips, and she felt the pull, the urge to close the distance. The song ended, but neither moved. Then Jasmine's voice cut through, calling Lila to help with the raffle, and the spell broke. Lila stepped back, her cheeks burning. "I gotta go," she mumbled, hurrying off. But Ethan wasn't done. Later, as the crowd thinned, Lila slipped into the clinic's back office to grab some paperwork. The door creaked, and she turned to find Ethan there, his blazer off, tie loosened. The air felt charged, like the calm before a storm. "Need help?" he asked, stepping closer. "I'm good," Lila said, but her voice wavered. She turned to the desk, fumbling with folders, hyper-aware of his presence. He was close now, close enough that she could smell his cologne, feel the heat radiating from him. "Lila," he said, his voice low, almost a whisper. "I can't stop thinking about you." She froze, her heart pounding. "Ethan, don't. We're from different worlds. Are we?" He moved closer, his hand brushing hers. "Because right now it feels like we're in the same one." She turned to face him, intending to push him away, but the look in his eyes, raw, unguarded, stopped her. Before she could think, he leaned in, and their lips met, urgent and hungry. The kiss was fire, igniting something deep within her. Lila's hands found his chest, fingers curling into his shirt as he deepened the kiss, his tongue teasing hers. They stumbled against the desk, papers scattering. Ethan's hand slid to her waist, pulling her close, and Lila gasped as he lifted her onto the edge. Her dress rode up, and his fingers grazed her thighs, sending shivers through her. She tugged at his shirt, buttons popping free, revealing the hard planes of his chest. His mouth moved to her neck, trailing kisses that made her arch against him, her breath coming in soft, desperate gasps. "God, Lila," he murmured against her skin, his voice rough with need. His hands roamed, one slipping beneath her dress, finding the curve of her hip. She clutched his shoulders, lost in the heat of him, the way their bodies fit like they'd been made for this moment. The desk creaked as they moved, a tangle of limbs and whispered want. Ethan's lips found hers again, and Lila felt herself unraveling, every touch pulling her deeper. Her nails dug into his back, and he groaned, the sound vibrating through her. They were a storm, fierce and unstoppable, every kiss a claim, every caress a promise. Then a sharp knock on the door jolted them apart. "Lila?" Jasmine's voice called. "You in there? We need you for the cleanup." Lila's eyes widened, her breath ragged. "Crap," she whispered, sliding off the desk. Ethan caught her, steadying her, his own breathing uneven. They stared at each other, clothes disheveled, the air still crackling. "Be right there," Lila called, her voice shaky. She smoothed her dress, avoiding Ethan's gaze. This was a mistake." "Lila," Ethan started, but she shook her head. "Don't," she said, grabbing the papers. "I can't do this, Ethan. Not with you." She slipped out, leaving him standing there, shirt half open, heart pounding. But as he adjusted his tie, a slow smile spread across his face. Mistake or not, he wasn't giving up. The next morning, Lila was back at the clinic, her head a mess. She'd barely slept, replaying that kiss, those hands, the way Ethan had made her feel alive in a way she hadn't in years. But then she saw it, a tabloid on the break room table, its headline screaming, "Belltown billionaire smitten with Rainier Valley single mom." A blurry photo showed them at the fundraiser, her in his arms on the dance floor. Her stomach dropped. Jasmine slid into the chair beside her, wincing. "Girl, I'm sorry. Someone must have tipped them off." Lila's hand shook as she read the article. It painted her as a gold digger, Ethan as a playboy slumming it for kicks. Worse, it mentioned Noah, implying she was using her son to climb the social ladder. The words cut deep, slicing through the warmth of last night. "Who does this?" she whispered, her voice breaking. Jasmine hesitated. "I heard some gossip at the gala. Ethan's brother Derek. He's got a big mouth and a bigger grudge." Lila's jaw clenched. She'd let her guard down, and now her life was a headline. She grabbed her phone, ignoring the curious glances from coworkers, and headed for the door. She needed air, space, anything to stop the world from spinning. At his penthouse, Ethan was on the phone with his lawyer when he saw the tabloid. Rage surged through him. Derek's fingerprints were all over this. He slammed the paper down, already dialing his brother, but it went to voicemail. Coward. He drove to the clinic, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Lila was outside, pacing the sidewalk, her arms crossed. She looked up as he parked, her eyes blazing. "Lila, I'm so sorry," he said, stepping out. "This is my fault. I'll fix it." "Fix it?" she snapped, thrusting the tabloid at him. "My kid's name is in here, Ethan. My neighbors are whispering. My boss is asking questions. You don't get to just fix that." "I didn't know Derek would—" he started, but she cut him off. "Your world is toxic," she said, her voice trembling. "I was fine before you showed up. I don't need this, and neither does Noah." "Lila, please," Ethan said, stepping closer. "What happened last night? It wasn't a mistake. It was real." She shook her head, tears brimming. "Real doesn't survive in your world, Ethan. Stay away from me." She turned and walked back inside, leaving him in the rain, the tabloid crumpled in his hand. For the first time in years, Ethan felt something he hadn't in a long time. Fear. Fear that he'd lost something he didn't even know he needed. The Seattle sky was a heavy gray, the kind that promised rain but held back, leaving the air thick with tension. Inside the Rainier Valley Community Clinic, Lila Harper moved through her shift like a ghost, her eyes shadowed from sleepless nights. The tabloid headline, "Belltown billionaire smitten with Rainier Valley single mom," had spread like wildfire, and the whispers followed her everywhere. Patients gave her sidelong glances, co-workers asked pointed questions, and yesterday, Noah's teacher had called, concerned about rumors affecting him at school. Lila's world, once steady and small, was unraveling, and Ethan Caldwell was at the center of it. She stood at the front desk, sorting charts, when Jasmine Torres slid up beside her, a coffee in hand. "You okay, girl?" Jasmine asked, her voice soft. "You look like you're carrying the whole damn city on your shoulders." Lila forced a smile. "Just tired. Noah's been asking questions, and I don't know what to tell him." Jasmine frowned, setting her coffee down. "This is that tabloid's fault. And whoever fed them that garbage. You think it was Ethan's brother?" "Doesn't matter," Lila said, her voice flat. "It's done. I just want it to go away." But it wasn't going away. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Ethan, his hands on her, his lips against hers, that reckless, burning moment in the office. It had felt so right, so alive, until the world crashed in. Now, all she felt was regret. She'd let him in, and it had cost her. In Belltown, Ethan Caldwell stood in the boardroom of Caldwell Enterprises, facing a firing squad of suits. The room was all glass and steel, a cold reflection of his empire, but today it felt like a cage. His sister, Maya, sat at the far end, her expression unreadable, while board members shuffled papers and avoided his gaze. The air was thick with unspoken accusations. "Ethan," said Harold Vance, a gray-haired board member with a voice like gravel, "your recent activities are raising concerns. This clinic obsession, the donation, and now this tabloid nonsense, it's hurting our brand." Ethan's jaw tightened. The donation was a tax write-off. The clinic serves a community we've ignored for years. And the tabloid? That's my brother's doing, not mine. Maya leaned forward, her manicured nails tapping the table. "Don't play the victim, Ethan. You've been distracted and it's affecting our bottom line. Investors are nervous. They want stability, not headlines about your love life." "Love life?" Ethan's laugh was bitter. "You think I planned this? I'm trying to do something good, Maya. Maybe you should try it sometime." The room fell silent, the tension palpable. Then Ryan Kessler spoke up, his voice smooth as silk. Ethan hadn't even noticed him in the corner, a predator waiting for his moment. "Let's be honest," Ryan said, smirking. "Ethan's priorities are elsewhere. I've heard rumors about a certain project your father buried. A land deal in Rainier Valley back in the day. Not exactly legal, was it?" Ethan's blood ran cold. He'd found records of that deal last week, an under-the-table purchase that displaced families, signed off by his father under pressure. He'd been planning to investigate quietly, but Ryan's smug grin told him the secret was already out. "What are you implying, Kessler?" Ethan asked, his voice low. "Just saying," Ryan said, shrugging. "If that got out, it'd be bad for business. Step back, Ethan. Let someone else steer the ship." Ethan stood, his fists clenched. "If anyone wants me out, call a vote. But I'm not walking away from what's right." He stormed out, ignoring Maya's call after him. In the elevator, he leaned against the wall, his mind racing. Ryan knew too much, and Derek was feeding him ammunition. But worse than that was Lila, her face when she told him to stay away, the hurt in her eyes. He'd screwed this up, and he didn't know how to fix it. Lila's apartment was quiet that evening, the kind of quiet that felt heavy. Noah was at Malik's practicing piano, leaving Lila alone with her thoughts. She sat on the couch, staring at the tabloid she hadn't been able to throw away. The photo of her and Ethan dancing mocked her, a frozen moment of what could have been. Her phone buzzed, a text from her landlord, reminding her rent was due. She sighed, rubbing her temples. Life didn't stop for heartbreak. The doorbell rang, and she opened it to find Malik, his saxophone case slung over his shoulder. "Noah's still banging away at round midnight," he said, stepping inside. "Kid's got heart. But you, Lila, you look like you lost yours." "I'm fine," she lied, grabbing a soda from the fridge. Malik raised an eyebrow, settling at the kitchen table. "Uh-huh, and I'm Miles Davis. This about that rich boy, ain't it? The one who's got you all twisted up?" Lila sighed, sinking into a chair. "He's not... I don't know what he is. I thought he was different, but then this tabloid hit, and it's like I'm back to square one. Noah's getting teased at school, Malik. I can't let him get hurt." Malik nodded, his eyes kind. "I get it. You're a mama bear. But shutting out that Caldwell fella, does that fix it? Or does it just keep you lonely?" Lila didn't answer, but Malik's words lingered. She'd built walls to protect Noah, to protect herself, but Ethan had slipped through, and now she didn't know how to rebuild. The next day, Lila was restocking supplies at the clinic when Dr. Patel called her into his office. He looked uneasy, holding a folder. "Lila, I need to ask you something," he said. "This tabloid, it's causing a stir. Some patients are asking if you're involved with Caldwell's company. I know it's nonsense, but I have to ask, did you know about his projects here?" Lila's heart sank. "What projects?" Dr. Patel hesitated, then slid the folder across. "I did some digging. 5 years ago, Caldwell Enterprises bought a block in Rainier Valley, low-income housing. They tore it down for condos. A lot of families got displaced, including, well, I think your old apartment was in that block." Lila's hands shook as she opened the folder. There it was, a contract with Ethan's signature, dated 6 months after she and Noah had been forced to move. She'd scrambled to find a new place, working double shifts to cover the higher rent. She'd never connected it to Ethan, but now it hit like a betrayal. "He knew," she whispered, her voice breaking. "He knew, and he still—" "Lila, I'm sure he didn't—" Dr. Patel started, but she was already out the door. She found Ethan in the clinic's meeting room, reviewing plans for the new X-ray machine. He looked up, his face lighting up, but it faded when he saw her expression. "Lila, what's wrong?" he asked, standing. She threw the folder onto the table, papers spilling out. "This. You tore down my home, Ethan. Noah and we lost everything because of you. And you waltz in here, throwing money around, acting like some savior. How dare you?" Ethan's face paled as he scanned the documents. "Lila, I didn't know it was your place. I signed off on hundreds of deals back then. I was just doing your job?" she snapped, tears brimming. "That's what men like you always say. You destroy lives, then buy your way out of guilt. I trusted you, Ethan. I let you in, and this is what I get." "Lila, please," he said, stepping closer. "I'm not that guy anymore. I'm trying to make it right." "Right?" Her laugh was bitter. "You can't make this right. Stay out of my life, Ethan. For good." She stormed out, leaving him with the papers and a sinking dread. He'd thought the tabloid was bad, but this was a wound he didn't know how to heal. That evening, Ethan sat in his penthouse, the city lights mocking him. He'd called his lawyer to track down every family displaced by that deal, determined to make amends, but it felt hollow. Lila's words echoed in his head. "You destroy lives." He poured a whiskey, then set it down untouched. He didn't want to numb this. He wanted to feel it, to understand what he'd done. His phone rang. Margaret, his assistant. "Sir, I've got news. Ryan Kessler's been meeting with board members, pushing for a vote to remove you. And there's something else. He's digging into that old Rainier Valley deal. Says he's got proof it was shady." Ethan's grip tightened. Let him try. I'm not running. But as he hung up, doubt crept in. Ryan wasn't just after his job, he was after everything. And if Lila wouldn't even look at him, what was he fighting for? The next morning, Lila was dropping Noah off at school when her phone buzzed, a text from Jasmine. "Emergency at clinic. Noah's hurt." Her heart stopped. She raced to the hospital, her mind a blur of panic. Noah had been riding his bike near the clinic, trying to impress a friend, and crashed, fracturing his wrist. When she arrived, he was sitting on an exam table, his arm in a temporary splint, looking small and scared. "Mom," he said, his voice wobbly. "I'm sorry. I just wanted to be cool like Jason." Lila hugged him tightly, tears stinging her eyes. "Don't you ever scare me like that again. Okay?" The doctor assured her Noah would be fine, but Lila barely heard him. She was filling out paperwork when Ethan appeared in the doorway, his suit rumpled, his face etched with worry. "Lila," he said, breathless. "Jasmine called me. Is he okay?" She stiffened, her anger flaring. "What are you doing here?" "I canceled a meeting," he said, stepping closer. "I needed to know you were both okay." Lila wanted to yell, to push him away, but Noah's voice stopped her. "Mr. Ethan," he said, managing a grin despite the pain. "You came." Ethan knelt beside him, his voice gentle. "Of course I did, buddy. You're tougher than me, you know that? I'd be crying like a baby with a cast." Noah giggled, and Lila's heart twisted. She hated how easy it was for Ethan to fit here, how Noah lit up around him, but she couldn't forget the folder, the signature, the years of struggle. Ethan stayed, distracting Noah with stories about the tallest buildings he'd designed, his voice steady even as Lila avoided his gaze. When the doctor returned with discharge papers, Ethan carried Noah's backpack, his presence a quiet anchor. Lila didn't thank him, but she didn't tell him to leave either. As they reached her car, Ethan paused, his eyes searching hers. "Lila, I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But I'm not giving up on you. Or Noah." She looked away, her throat tight. "Just go, Ethan." He nodded, stepping back. But as she drove away, she caught his reflection in the rearview mirror, alone, shoulders slumped, and somehow, it didn't feel like victory. Back at the clinic, Lila buried herself in work, but the weight of everything, Ethan, Noah, the tabloid, pressed down. Jasmine found her in the break room, staring at a cold cup of coffee. "Lila," Jasmine said, sitting across from her, "you can't keep running from this. Ethan messed up, big time. But I saw him today. He dropped everything for you and Noah. That's not nothing." "It's not enough," Lila said, her voice barely audible. "I can't let Noah get attached to someone who'll leave. Not again." Jasmine reached for her hand. "I get it. But shutting him out, does that protect Noah? Or just you?" Lila didn't answer, but the question lingered, sharp and unyielding. Ethan drove to his office, his mind a storm. He'd meant what he said. He wasn't giving up. But Lila's pain was real, and he'd caused it, even if he hadn't known. He opened his laptop, pulling up the Rainier Valley files. There had to be a way to make this right, to show her he was more than his mistakes. Then his phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Check the news. Your brother's been busy." Ethan's heart sank. He opened a browser, and there it was. A new article. Caldwell's past sins. Did the billionaire's empire start with a scandal? It hinted at the shady Rainier Valley deal, with Derek's name all over the byline. Ethan slammed his laptop shut. Derek had crossed a line, and Ryan was pulling the strings. But as he stared out at the Seattle skyline, one thing was clear. He wasn't just fighting for his company anymore. He was fighting for Lila, for Noah, for a chance to be the man he'd forgotten how to be. The Seattle rain had returned, a soft patter against the windows of Ethan Caldwell's penthouse in Belltown. Inside, the space felt colder than usual, the sleek furniture and city views doing little to ease the ache in his chest. Ethan sat at his desk, a leather-bound journal open before him, its pages yellowed with age. It was his father's, unearthed by his brother Derek in a storage unit, a relic of a man Ethan thought he'd understood. But as he read the faded handwriting, he realized he'd been wrong. "I tried to save Rainier Valley," his father had written years ago. "The developers wanted it all, cheap land, quick profits. I fought for the families, but Eleanor wouldn't hear it. She said we had to think of the future, of our children. I failed them, Ethan. Don't make my mistakes. Build something that matters." Ethan's throat tightened. His father, Henry Caldwell, had been a doctor who believed in people over profit, a stark contrast to his mother's ambition. Ethan had chosen her path, glass towers, billion-dollar deals, thinking it was strength. But this journal, these words, were a mirror, reflecting a truth he'd ignored. He'd been running from who he was meant to be. His phone buzzed, a text from Derek. "Found this in Dad's stuff. Thought you should see it. I'm sorry, man." Ethan stared at the message, stunned. Derek, the brother who'd spent years resenting him. had sent this? Something was shifting, and Ethan wasn't sure what to make of it. He closed the journal, his resolve hardening. Lila Harper's face flashed in his mind, her anger, her pain, the way she'd looked at him in the hospital when Noah was hurt. He'd lost her trust, but he wasn't giving up. Not on her, not on Noah, and not on the man his father believed he could be. In Rainier Valley, Lila Harper was trying to hold it together. The clinic was quieter today, the usual chaos softened by a rare sunny afternoon. She stood at the front desk, organizing files, but her mind was elsewhere. Noah's wrist was healing, his blue cast now covered in doodles, but the tabloid fallout lingered. Kids at school had stopped teasing him thanks to a stern principal, but Lila felt exposed, like her life was a book everyone could read. Jasmine Torres leaned against the counter, peeling an orange. "You heard from Mr. Billionaire lately?" she asked, her tone casual but probing. Lila shook her head. "Not since the hospital. Good riddance." Jasmine raised an eyebrow. "Really? 'Cause you've been checking that door like he's gonna walk through it any second." Lila flushed, shoving a file into place. "I'm just jumpy, okay? After all this mess, I'm allowed." "Uh-huh," Jasmine said, popping an orange slice into her mouth. "Look, I'm not saying he's perfect, but that guy dropped everything when Noah got hurt. Showed up looking like he hadn't slept in days. That's not the Ethan Caldwell I read about in Forbes." Lila didn't respond, but Jasmine's words stirred something. She'd pushed Ethan away, convinced he was another Ryan Kessler, charming, selfish, gone when it counted. But Ethan hadn't left. Not yet. That evening, Ethan stood before a packed community center in Rainier Valley, his tie loosened, his sleeves rolled up. The room was a mix of skeptical locals, clinic staff, and a few reporters sniffing for a story. He'd called the meeting himself, against Maya's advice, determined to face the neighborhood he'd wronged. "I'm Ethan Caldwell," he began, his voice steady despite the hostile stares. 5 years ago, my company bought up a block of your homes. We displaced families, broke communities, and I signed off on it. I didn't know the full impact then, but that's no excuse. I was wrong, and I'm sorry." The room buzzed, murmurs rippling through the crowd. Lila stood at the back, her arms crossed, her heart pounding. She hadn't expected this. Ethan, raw and unguarded, owning his mistakes in front of everyone. "I'm redirecting Caldwell Enterprises' resources," Ethan continued. "We're funding affordable housing here, starting with a new complex on the old site. No condos, no profits, just homes for the people who belong here. And the clinic? It's getting a full renovation, no strings attached." A woman in the front row stood, her voice sharp. "Why should we trust you? You're the reason we lost our homes in the first place." Ethan met her gaze, unflinching. "You shouldn't. Not yet. Trust is earned, and I'm here to start earning it. I'm not my company. I'm not my name. I'm just a guy trying to do better." Lila's breath caught. She saw the sincerity in his eyes, the same look he'd had in the hospital, and it shook her. As the meeting ended, people milled around, some still skeptical, others cautiously hopeful. Ethan stayed, answering questions, shaking hands, his usual polish replaced by something real. Lila lingered, unsure why she hadn't left. When Ethan finally saw her, his face softened. "Lila," he said, approaching. "I didn't think you'd come." "Neither did I," she admitted, her voice low. "That was unexpected." He ran a hand through his hair, a nervous habit she'd started to notice. "I meant every word. I'm done hiding from my mistakes." She studied him, searching for the catch, but found none. "Why now, Ethan? Why does this matter so much?" He hesitated, then said, "Because of you. You showed me what I was missing, what I could be. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I need you to know I'm trying." Lila's chest tightened. She wanted to stay angry, to keep her walls up, but his words cracked something open. Before she could respond, Noah's piano recital was announced over the community center speakers, and she slipped away, her heart a mess. The downtown conservatory was packed, the air humming with anticipation. Ethan slipped into the back row, his suit rumpled from the meeting. On stage, Lila Harper walked out, his cast barely visible under his suit jacket, his glasses glinting under the lights. Lila sat near the front, her posture tense, her green dress catching the glow of the auditorium. Ethan's heart ached. She was so close, yet so far. Noah sat at the grand piano, took a deep breath, and launched into a jazz piece. Coltrane's My Favorite Things, bold and intricate. His small fingers danced across the keys, weaving a melody that was both precise and soulful. Ethan leaned forward, captivated, pride swelling in his chest. Noah wasn't just talented, he was fearless. When the piece ended, the audience erupted, Lila on her feet clapping through tears. Noah beamed, searching the crowd until he found his mother, then spotted Ethan and waved. Ethan waved back, a grin splitting his face. As awards were announced, Noah took first place, his smile brighter than the trophy. After the recital, Ethan waited outside, the Seattle night cool against his skin. Lila and Noah emerged, Noah clutching his certificate, chattering excitedly. "Mr. Ethan!" he called, running over. "Did you see me? I nailed it!" "You were unreal, buddy," Ethan said, kneeling to high-five him. "Coltrane's got nothing on you." Lila approached, her expression guarded but softer than before. "You didn't have to come," she said. "I wanted to," Ethan replied, standing. "He's incredible, Lila. So are you." Noah tugged at Lila's hand. "Mom, can Mr. Ethan come to our pizza party? Please?" Lila hesitated, her eyes meeting Ethan's. Something shifted, a crack in her armor. "Okay," she said quietly. "If he wants." Ethan's heart leapt. "I'd love to." At Lila's apartment, the mood was lighter, the small space filled with the smell of pepperoni and Noah's chatter. Malik joined them, cracking jokes about his own recital days, while Jasmine popped in with a six-pack of soda. Ethan felt out of place at first, his blazer draped over a chair, but Noah's enthusiasm pulled him in. They played a board game, Ethan fumbling the rules, and Lila's laugh, rare and unguarded, made his chest tighten. When Noah went to bed, exhausted, Malik and Jasmine left, leaving Ethan and Lila alone. The silence was heavy, charged with everything unsaid. Lila stood at the sink, rinsing dishes, her back to him. "Lila," Ethan said, stepping closer. "Can we talk?" She turned, drying her hands, her eyes wary. "What's there to say?" He took a deep breath. "I'm sorry. For the deal, for the tabloid, for everything. I didn't know how much I'd hurt you until you showed me. But I'm changing, Lila. Not just for you, but because it's right." She studied him, her walls still up. "I'm scared, Ethan. Scared of letting you in. Scared of what it means for Noah. I've been hurt before. I can't do that again." "I know," he said, his voice raw. "I'm not him. I'm not going anywhere." Something broke in her then, a dam giving way. "I don't want to push you away," she whispered, "but I don't know how to let you stay." Ethan closed the distance, his hand brushing her cheek. "Let me show you." She didn't pull away. Their eyes locked, and the world narrowed to this moment. He kissed her, soft at first, then deeper, a promise in every touch. Lila's hands found his chest, fingers curling into his shirt, and she kissed him back, fierce and hungry. They moved to the couch, the apartment's dim light casting shadows. Ethan's hands slid to her waist, pulling her close, and Lila's breath hitched as she straddled him, her dress riding up. The kiss turned urgent, a fire reigniting from that night in the office. His fingers traced her spine, slipping beneath the fabric, and she arched into him, a soft moan escaping her lips. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice trembling with need. He kissed her neck, slow and deliberate, savoring the way she shivered. Her hands roamed his chest, tugging his shirt free, and he groaned as her nails grazed his skin. The couch creaked as they shifted, bodies pressing closer, a tangle of heat and want. He lifted her dress, his hands finding the smooth curve of her hips, and she gasped, her head tilting back. Their movements were a dance, urgent yet tender, every touch a confession. Ethan's lips found hers again, and they moved as one, lost in the rhythm of their shared desire. Her breaths came in soft, ragged bursts, and his low murmurs of her name filled the space between them. The world outside ceased to exist. There was only this, only them, a moment of complete surrender. When they finally stilled, tangled together, Lila's head rested against his chest, his heartbeat steady beneath her. She traced lazy circles on his skin, and he kissed her forehead, his arms tight around her. "Stay," she whispered, barely audible. "I'm not going anywhere," he promised, his voice thick with emotion. Morning light crept through the curtains, and they woke to Noah's voice calling from his room. Lila laughed, a sound Ethan wanted to bottle, and they scrambled to look presentable, sharing a conspiratorial grin as Noah bounded in, oblivious. Later that day, Ethan stood before the clinic's advisory board, a new plan in hand. "I'm launching the Henry Caldwell Foundation," he announced, his voice firm. "It'll fund clinics and schools across Seattle starting here. I'm stepping back from day-to-day operations at Caldwell Enterprises to focus on this, and I'd like Lila Harper to be our community liaison, if she'll have it." Lila, in the room taking notes, froze, her eyes wide. She met his gaze, a mix of surprise and something softer. Trust, maybe. After the meeting, she pulled him aside. "You're serious about this?" "Dead serious," Ethan said. "I want to build something real, Lila. With you, if you'll let me." She nodded, a small smile breaking through. "Okay, let's try." But trouble was brewing. At Caldwell Enterprises, Maya was in her office, a new article on her desk. Caldwell's charity, philanthropy, or cover-up. It hinted at the old Rainier Valley deal, with Ryan Kessler's name in the shadows. She dialed a number, her voice cold. "We need to talk, Ryan. Ethan's not the only one who can play this game." Seattle sparkled under a rare winter sun, the kind that made the city feel like a postcard, snow-dusted mountains in the distance, Puget Sound glinting like glass. The Rainier Valley Community Clinic stood prouder than ever, its new wing gleaming with fresh paint and state-of-the-art equipment. Today was its grand reopening, a celebration of resilience and hope, and the air buzzed with excitement. Tables lined the parking lot, piled with donuts and coffee, while a local band played upbeat jazz, filling the chilly morning with warmth. Lila Harper stood at the edge of the crowd, her breath visible in the crisp air. She wore a navy coat over her new work outfit, not scrubs anymore, but a tailored blazer and skirt, marking her role as the community liaison for the Henry Caldwell Foundation. Her hair was down, loose curls framing her face, and her eyes shone with a mix of pride and nerves. 6 months ago, she'd been dodging tabloid headlines and guarding her heart. Now, she was here, part of something bigger, and it felt both exhilarating and terrifying. Across the lot, Ethan Caldwell was shaking hands with Dr. Patel, his smile easy, but his eyes searching. He wore a simple sweater and jeans, a far cry from the suits that once defined him. The clinic's expansion was his doing, funded by the foundation he'd named for his father. But he wasn't here for applause. He was here for her. "Lila!" Noah Harper bounded over, his blue cast long gone, replaced by a wrist brace he barely noticed. At 10, he was growing fast, his glasses slipping down his nose as he grinned. "Mom, they've got a whole table of cookies. Can I grab some?" Lila laughed, ruffling his hair. "2, Max. You'll be bouncing off the walls." Noah darted off, and Lila's gaze drifted to Ethan. He caught her eye, and her heart did that familiar flip, less guarded now, but still potent. She'd spent months rebuilding trust, letting him into her life one careful step at a time. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and that was enough. 6 months earlier, the night on her couch had changed everything. Waking up tangled with Ethan, laughing as they scrambled to look normal for Noah, had felt like a new beginning. But life wasn't a fairy tale, and Seattle's elite weren't done with them. The trouble started with a new article, slipped under Maya Caldwell's office door. Caldwell's charity, philanthropy, or cover-up. It dug into the old Rainier Valley deal, hinting at illegal payoffs and naming Ethan's father. Maya, furious at Ethan's pivot to philanthropy, saw an opportunity. She met Ryan Kessler at a dimly lit bar downtown, her voice cold as ice. "We can use this," she told Ryan, sliding the article across. "Ethan's distracted, vulnerable. Push the board to vote him out, and I'll back you for CEO." Ryan's smirk was predatory. "And what's in it for you?" "Control," Maya said simply. "The Caldwell name stays mine." But Ethan wasn't blind. He'd sensed Maya's ambition and Ryan's scheming, and he was ready. The morning after the article dropped, he called a press conference at the clinic, standing in the parking lot with Lila by his side. The crowd was a mix of reporters, locals, and curious staff, the air tense with anticipation. "I'm Ethan Caldwell," he began, his voice carrying over the murmurs. "You've read the stories about my company, my family, my mistakes. Some are true. My father made a deal he regretted, and I signed off on others I didn't understand. But I'm not here to hide. I'm here to make it right." He gestured to the clinic behind him. "The Henry Caldwell Foundation is my commitment to Rainier Valley, to Seattle, to the people I've let down. I'm stepping back as CEO of Caldwell Enterprises to focus on this. And I'm not alone." He looked at Lila, his eyes steady. "Lila Harper, a woman who knows this community better than anyone, is joining me. Together, we're building something that lasts." Lila stepped forward, her voice clear despite her nerves. "This clinic saved my life when I had nothing. It's not just a building, it's a promise. We're here to keep that promise, not for headlines, but for people." The crowd erupted, some cheering, others nodding thoughtfully. Reporters fired questions, but Ethan and Lila answered as a team, their honesty disarming. By the time the conference ended, the narrative had shifted. Ethan wasn't a villain anymore, and Lila wasn't a pawn. They were partners, flawed but trying. Maya watched from her office, the live stream playing on her tablet. Her jaw tightened as the board's group chat lit up with praise for Ethan's move. Ryan's plan had backfired and her own leverage was slipping. She shut the tablet off, her mind racing, but deep down, a grudging respect stirred. Ethan was her brother, after all, and he'd outplayed her. Back at the reopening, the ceremony was in full swing. Dr. Patel cut a red ribbon, cameras flashing, while Noah darted through the crowd, showing off his piano trophy to anyone who'd listen. Ethan's mother, Eleanor, stood stiffly near the edge, her silver hair impeccable, her presence a reluctant nod to her son's new path. Derek was there too, sober for 3 months, helping with the foundation's budget. He caught Ethan's eye and gave a small nod. A fragile truce, but a start. Lila moved through the crowd, coordinating volunteers, her confidence growing with every handshake. She'd started nursing school part-time, a dream she'd shelved for years, and Ethan's quiet encouragement had made it feel possible. They weren't perfect. He still forgot to text back sometimes, and she still worried too much. But they were learning. Jasmine Torres sidled up, a donut in hand. "Look at you, Ms. Liaison," she teased. "Running this show like a boss. And don't think I didn't see you and Ethan sneaking looks. Y'all are cute." Lila rolled her eyes, but her smile betrayed her. "Shut it, Jazz. I'm working." "Uh-huh," Jasmine said, winking. "Work on that man, too. He's a keeper." Malik Jones joined them, his saxophone case slung over his shoulder. "She's right, Lila," he said, his gravelly voice warm. "Boy's got heart. Reminds me of me, back when I was chasing my ruby." Lila laughed, shaking her head. "You two are relentless." As the speeches wrapped up, Ethan made his way to her, his expression softer than she'd ever seen. "What do you think?" he asked, gesturing to the clinic. "Your dad would be proud, right?" Lila squeezed his hand, her voice steady. "Yeah, he would." They stood there, the crowd fading into the background, and for a moment, it was just them, two people who'd found each other against all odds. Ethan's thumb brushed her knuckles, a quiet promise, and Lila felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the sun. Later, as the event wound down, Ethan pulled Lila and Noah aside, leading them to a quiet corner of the new wing. A plaque on the wall read, "Noah Harper Music Room, dedicated to young talent." Noah's eyes widened, his mouth dropping open. "Is this for me?" he asked, clutching his trophy. Ethan knelt, grinning. "Yep, the foundation's starting a music program, and you're our first star. Think you can handle it?" Noah threw his arms around Ethan, nearly knocking him over. "Yes, can I play in it? Like, all the time?" "Anytime you want, buddy," Ethan said, laughing. Lila watched, her throat tight. She'd spent so long protecting Noah, shielding him from a world that could hurt. But Ethan wasn't that world. He was part of theirs now, and it felt right. As Noah ran off to explore the room, Ethan turned to Lila, his voice low. "I've got something for you, too. Both of you, actually." He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket, and Lila's breath caught. But when he opened it, it wasn't a ring. It was a delicate silver necklace, a tiny piano charm glinting in the light. "I'm not asking anything big," he said, his eyes searching hers. "Not yet. I just want you to know I'm here, for as long as you'll have me." Lila's eyes shimmered, but she smiled, stepping closer. "You're such a sap, Ethan Caldwell." "Guilty," he said, fastening the necklace around her neck. His fingers brushed her skin, and she shivered, the touch sparking memories of their night together. She leaned up, kissing him softly, her lips warm against his. Noah's voice broke the moment. "Gross, Mom," he called, giggling from the doorway. "Are you guys gonna be all mushy forever?" Ethan laughed, pulling Lila close. "Maybe, buddy. You cool with that?" Noah considered, then grinned. "Yeah, but only if we can see your big building sometime. You promised." "Deal," Ethan said, ruffling his hair. That evening, they stood on the balcony of Ethan's penthouse, their penthouse now, at least part-time. Lila and Noah still kept their apartment, but they spent weekends here, Noah's piano books scattered across the once sterile living room. The city stretched below, a tapestry of lights, and Ethan held Lila from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. "Who would have thought?" he murmured, his breath warm against her ear. "All because you wouldn't give me the time of day." Lila turned in his arms, her eyes teasing. "Oh, I was looking. I just waited till you were worth seeing." He kissed her then, slow and deep, the kind of kiss that felt like home. Noah's piano played softly inside, a gentle melody that wove through the night, tying them together. The Henry Caldwell Foundation grew, opening music schools and clinics across Seattle. Lila thrived in her role, her nursing degree within reach. Ethan and Derek rebuilt their bond, working together on the foundation, while Eleanor softened, attending Noah's recitals with a reluctant smile. Maya stepped back, her ambition tempered by Ethan's resolve, and Ryan Kessler faded into obscurity, his schemes no match for truth. But the real victory was quieter. Dinners at Lila's apartment, game nights with Noah, mornings when Ethan woke to Lila's laughter. They weren't perfect, but they were enough. A family forged not by blood, but by choice. As they stood on the balcony, Ethan whispered, "I love you, Lila. You and Noah. You're my everything." She squeezed his hand, her voice soft. "We love you too. Now shut up and enjoy the view." He laughed, pulling her closer, and the city shimmered below, a testament to what they'd built. Not just buildings, but a life, messy and beautiful, and theirs. The lesson wasn't in the headlines or the foundation's grants. It was in the small things. Trust earned through time, love that grew through pain, and the courage to be seen, flaws and all. Ethan had spent years chasing a legacy, only to find it in a woman who challenged him and a boy who taught him joy. Lila had guarded her heart, only to discover it was stronger when shared. And Noah? He just wanted to play piano and eat pizza, but he'd brought them together, a spark that lit the way. And that's the end of Ethan and Lila's journey. From a stuck elevator to a family found, what a ride. What was your favorite moment? Their big kiss? Noah's piano win? Or maybe that epic press conference? Hit that subscribe button, share this video, and drop a comment. Tell us what moved you or what story you want next. Thanks for being part of this Seattle love story. See you in the next one.